G'day, it's Russ here. Well, I don't often give away too much information in regards to what our members are doing to prepare themselves for our selection panel interview. But if you're considering doing the training and you're not quite sure whether it's for you or not, I thought today I'd share a few minutes of just one of the videos within dozens of videos that make up our coaching program to give you a better understanding of the sorts of things that we're working on to maximise our performance at the selection panel interview. So I hope you enjoy the video, and if I can help you with your preparation, don't hesitate to sing out. Okay, hopefully you went okay with that question and you've recorded it. Now what I want to do is just go through a little exercise to help give you some tools to make sure you get the most out of your answer. Now it's always easier when you see the question in front of your eyes than when you're comparing it to maybe just hearing the question. So let's go through it again. Give an example of a time when you've displayed a high level of resilience and reliability, even in difficult circumstances. Now when you get a question in the panel, it's really important that you take some time to absorb the question. I would repeat the question to myself just in my mind before even trying to deal with it and give an answer, because the first step is to try to identify what the key words are in that particular question. So let's start by doing that. So obviously resilience, reliability, they're key words that we're going to need to address. We're going to need to give evidence of those two qualities, but we also need to establish that we've been in a difficult situation or we've experienced some difficult circumstances. So once I've identified those words, I need to extract them from the question, and I'm just going to lay them out on the paper in front of me if I'm just using a pen and paper. And what I want to do is actually separate them into 3 separate columns. And now I'm going to go about coming up with some evidence or some points that I can use to address each one of those. Now, I think it's important we start with the difficult circumstances. It's hard to show that you've been resilient and reliable without first establishing that you had some difficult circumstances or a difficult situation to deal with. Now, when we're trying to come up with a difficult situation, we're not talking about how you had to work 2 hours overtime one day, but you're so resilient that you managed to cope with it. We're looking for something that has a much bigger impact on your life than that in order to improve the quality of the answer that you give. So here's just a couple of suggestions that you might think about. If you've experienced a divorce, if you've had a very sick child who's maybe been hospitalized, if you've been retrenched from your job and now you're unemployed and having trouble putting food on the table, or maybe your partner's been deployed overseas, as one of our members had, into a combat role, that would be a pretty difficult situation to have to deal with. So for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to use this sick child situation. So let me bring that across to one side so we can work our way through this. So in order to establish that I had a difficult situation, I'm just going to come up with some key points, just 3 or 4 things to help satisfy them that, okay, yep, that's a pretty difficult situation. So it might go something along the lines of, back in 2010, our daughter Stephanie was only 5 at the time, and she was gravely ill and actually spent 3 months in intensive care at the Royal Children's Hospital. And at the time we were living in Shepparton, so we were constantly travelling backwards and forwards to Melbourne, and it was a very serious situation. In fact, at one stage we thought we were going to lose her. My wife was just a mess at the time, and it was a really tough period and one that I found very difficult personally, but it was also very challenging for our whole family. So that's all I need to do. I'm trying to establish some facts that demonstrate I had a difficult situation to deal with. Now, when I'm listening to our members giving that sort of example of a difficult situation, I apply this little test that I call the big deal test. Now, if I had just explained that to the panel, it's unlikely they're going to be sitting there thinking, well, you've got a sick child, she nearly died, she's in intensive care at hospital, you're travelling backwards and forwards from the country, whatever, big deal. They're not going to say that's a big deal. If you said, yes, I remember having to work 2 hours overtime one night and it was really stressful, they'll probably say, well, big deal. So that's the first thing. We need to establish that, in fact, the situation that we're describing is a big deal, and it is worthy, I suppose, of using as a difficult situation or difficult circumstances. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to just reorder things a little bit to make sure that we can actually deliver this in a chronological order. So let me move all of the difficult situation pointers or points over here on the side now. So once we've established that it's difficult, now we need to get on and prove that we've dealt with it and we've been resilient, and we also need to address the reliable component of that question as well. Alright, so having dealt with a difficult situation, let's move on to now how I demonstrate that I'm in fact a resilient person. And really for me, resilience just...